We adjourn the closed session meeting. Now I'm going to call the regular meeting to order. As a courtesy to others, please silence your cell phones during the meeting and engage in conversations outside the chambers. If you're here to speak under public comments or on a particular item on the agenda, please fill out a request to speak card and turn it to the city clerk. The cards are located near the doors at the back of the chambers. Madam Clerk, please take the rolls.
Here. Councilmember Spriggs.
Here.
Councilmember Patton.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem West.
Here.
Mayor Dedina.
Here. And now we have Lexi Carter, a 6th grade student from Emory School, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we start, according to her teacher, Lexi is an outstanding student, leader, and advocate. Lexi lives by the philosophy that you can shine in every area of your life, you apply yourself, and have a positive attitude. And thanks, Lexi. Since I went to Emory School, so it's great to have you. Awesome.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice job. Now we have reimbursement disclosure reports on assignments and committees, starting with Councilmember Bragg.
As our representative to, well, actually, I'm the representative to MTS as their representative to the Transportation Committee meeting. I was in attendance at the Friday, October 5th meeting. The highlight for me, of course, was an update on the Mid-Coast project. The Mid-Coast trolley will be one that you will start in San Ysidro, and you will ride all the way in one seat without a transfer all the way to La Jolla UTC and the Veterans Hospital. So, yes.
Awesome.
We don't have an exact opening date, but 2020, sometime in 2020, let's all be there. Thank you.
Great, Mr. Spriggs.
That's great news. I had two official meetings since the last council meeting. The first one was Metro Joint Powers Association, Metro JPA Wastewater Commission on the 4th, and it was fairly routine. There was one large contract that we had to grapple with, but other than that, pretty straightforward. Really exciting meeting with Jack Ainsworth, the executive director of the California Coastal Commission, and Madeline Cavallari, one of his assistant directors. Andy Hall attended that meeting. It was over lunch. It was actually, this was in my capacity as chair of the League of California Cities Coastal Cities Group, the 61 coastal cities in California, all of whom are grappling with the question of how to best address updating their local coastal programs with the Coastal Commission, managing land use in the face of sea level rise, etc. We're all at various stages of this process, and a lot of it has been very contentious with the Coastal Commission. And this was the Commission's latest indication, at least the executive directors, that he wants to reach out and have a really more positive, forward-thinking dialogue with the coastal cities. So I was happy to respond as the chair of that group to have lunch with him, and we're going to find ways to make sure that there's a bigger overlap between what the cities are concerned about with their various complex issues and the Coastal Commission in its role of enforcing the California Coastal Act. So I think we're really heading in the right direction, and I'm looking forward to the next round of discussions. We're probably going to have a meeting with the full Coastal Cities Group, or at least its leadership committee, and then next year a joint meeting with the county, the Association of County Governments, coastal. They have a coastal counties working group, just like we do in the League of California Cities. So there are about 16 or 17 counties that are on the ocean as well in California. And about 4 years ago, we had a joint meeting with the Coastal Commission. There's strong talk right now about having another one, probably early to mid next year. So we'll be planning for that as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Patton.
Nothing at this time.
Mr. West.
Yeah, so a couple things happened on October 4th. As your representative to the Airport Authority, I met with we were at the San Diego Regional Airport Authority. We had our board meeting, and on that meeting, we formed an ad hoc committee to really address the ground transportation that's happening in our community around our airport. And it's really important that this is actually looked at because, as we all know, Lyft and Uber is really taking over the market. So we want to make sure that we have a fair and equitable process for all of the people throughout San Diego County. And then on October 12th, I was a representative at SANDAG for our San Diego Forward, which is really the 2019 through 2050 network regional plan concept for really addressing all of our transportation needs in our community. It was a really dynamic meeting and really talked about a lot of different things that are happening in our community as far as transportation. I will say we really need to hear people from South County get involved and be a part of this. And because there's a lot of differences and disagreements that are happening throughout our county, and I would highly recommend that if you are free, there are 3 more meetings that are coming up. There's one on the 18th, the 23rd, and the 25th. You can go to the SANDAG website and look for the San Diego Forward 2019 through 2015 Regional Complex Plan. It's our transportation plan. So, and then don't forget tomorrow, 10/18, Great American Shakeout. Don't forget. Last but not least, and I did a little bit of research with our staff just recently, and I want everyone to know how hard our staff is really working. They are doing amazing things in our community, and I am just amazed by what they're doing. They have, since 10/1/2017, we've hired 16 part-time or seasonal employees. We have had 14 replacement employees, and we've had 2 new hires in the entire year, 2 new hires. And one's a firefighter and one's an associate planner. Now, here's the deal. This really doesn't show how hard they've been working because in 10/1/17, we had FTEs, which are full-time equivalents, of 114. We are now at 109. So in other words, we're down 5 from this year. So it's really important to know when you're talking to our staff or when I'm talking to the staff to know how understaffed we really are. So they're really actively working to try to find those positions and hire more people. So thank you very much to the staff of Imperial Beach.
Great. Mr. Hall.
Mayor and Council, at the last meeting, there was a request by 3 or 4 people to have their comments included verbatim in our minutes. And I just wanted to explain a couple of things. We do not keep verbatim minutes. We keep action minutes. And so we have the action minutes that are in writing, but we do archive and we keep video of all of the comments. So if anybody wants to see anything verbatim and wants to see exactly what was said, the videos are always available online and on our website. But we don't have a court reporter. So it's very difficult for us to keep verbatim minutes. So we keep that video record. The other thing was the item 1.1, SANDAG has asked that item be moved to a future agenda. And then we would like to remove item 2.5, which is a resolution for a vision for California's coastal future. There were some council members that had some questions, and Mr. Helmer, our environmental manager, is not here tonight. So we're asking to put that on a future agenda so that those questions can be answered. Other than that, I don't have anything. Thanks, Mayor.
Is there a resolution to move item 2.2 from the agenda?
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
So the public comment, we have 12, council, we have 12 comments. I'd love, because we have a full agenda with lots of public discussion, I'd love to have these for 2 minutes so we can get through this.
2 minutes. We can start talking now. We can start talking right now.
Excuse me, you're out of order.
Right now.
Can you sit down, please?
Statement.
Can you sit down,
All of
please?
you a copy.
You're on.
All of you.
You're on.
All of you, here's a copy.
Eric,
2
you're
minutes.
out of order.
Read it. We're still discussing this. I'm more than
Could
prepared
you
to
escort him out,
address you
please?
right now. You
Could
have
you-
failed us, Mayor Dedina. You have
Can you
failed
please
us.
escort him?
Would we like to
It was
take a
just a proposal.
brief recess?
Just leave it at 3.
You're out of order.
No,
Can you please escort him
no,
out?
you listen.
Can you please
You
escort him out?
listen to us. This is ridiculous.
Just leave it at 3. Just leave it at 3.
Okay.
Yep, just
All
drag
right.
it out.
Jerry Quinn.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jerry Quinn, Elm Avenue resident. Again, I'm a registered Democrat, but what I want to speak to about today is how our politics in this city has changed. And it's not about Republican or Democrat. It's about Serge Dina. Serge Dina, I blame you for all of this because you were the first one to bring $153,000 of outside money into our city and change the dynamics of our politics forever. You brought interest from the hotel and restaurant unions, yet it's a coincidence that all of our seacoast is full of hotels and restaurants now. You started by obviously suing the taxpayers and the Army Corps of Engineers to get your nonprofit, Wild Coast. Then you run for mayor, you bring in $153,000 of outside money, and then you do the sanctuary city thing, which was a huge conflict. You posted neighbor against neighbor, citizens against citizen, and you brought that national conflict to our city. And now with Paloma Aguirre, an insider, which I feel is a yes stooge for you guys, you, Mark West, that's going to give you the controlling vote if she gets elected into this thing. And the bottom line is here, you pay her $100,000 a year. She says between 10 and 100,000, but it's closer to 100 to be your employee at Wild Coast. How is she ever going to have an independent vote in this council? She's not. If she goes against you, she has the risk of losing her job. That's the bottom line. And she's not ever going to do that. So the fact that you're having her run, and I got a question for you. Did Wild Coast pay for her internship up at Cory Booker? I know you can't answer, so it's just rhetorical. So anyway, my point is that you have decided, in the 4 years that you've been mayor, you have divided the city. I've never seen so much conflict in this city, never. And it never was here before you became mayor. You brought all this here. You did, Serge. You brought all these national politics to our city. We said we wouldn't have them here, but you have brought it, every issue that you brought up. Now, Paloma Aguirre, who is your employee, who you're running as your yes vote, she basically wants us to respect and acknowledge her candidacy for city council, but yet she sends out texts to everybody. I don't know how she got all of our phone numbers to do it. First of all, she got them from T-Mobile. She sends out a text saying that we are living in a time with the highest office of the land is occupied by a sexual predator and illegitimate elected official. Ramming down our throats, SCOTUS nominee was assaulted by a woman. This is the kind of things that you're trying to get elected to our council. She's already dividing us. She's bringing conflict. She's bringing the socialist democratic agenda to Imperial Beach. You're turning us into another Portland. This is ridiculous. Whatever. Excuse me, let me have some respect. Let me have my thing. So I would like also.
You have 5 seconds.
All right. I would like everybody
Sorry.
at home
Thank you.
to know what this woman, Paloma Aguirre, is doing.
Thank you.
This is what this is.
Thank you. Order,
Mayor,
Jerry.
I'm calling for an
Jerry,
investigation of Wild
order.
Coast and
Order,
you
Jerry.
from the
Order.
district attorney and the state attorney's office
Jerry,
for
order.
the funds because you have transferred
Order.
$1.5 million from $3 million that you raised from Wild Coast to your other nonprofit that your wife runs across the other side of the border. That's half the money, which is not
Jerry.
regulated.
Jerry, thank you.
You have a lot of issues.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Eric Tamlinson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Eric Tomlinson, and I am an IB resident. I would like to make a statement for the record. Mr. Mayor, I met you in 2016, and I thought you were different. You listened to the concerned citizens of Imperial Beach when you rescinded your disastrous open city proclamation, and for that, I do thank you. But now I've received multiple texts from you and Paloma Aguirre to vote for candidate Aguirre. And I came here to tell you tonight, well, number one, I don't know how you got my phone number, but I came to tell you tonight that my answer is no. I don't think it's fair to all the other candidates that are running, each and every one of them. with that kind of, you guys get cell phone numbers, text everybody. Also your conflict of interest with Wild Coast. The photograph of candidate Aguirre holding an F Trump sign at a far left socialist progressive extremist protest, advocating the overthrow of a duly elected president. This conduct is unbecoming of a leader that wants to lead our small town. I've researched candidate Aguirre, and I also seen a picture of another individual holding a Make America Mexico Again sign on her social media. Candidate Aguirre has tried to give an impression that she is bipartisan and moderate. However, all of this overwhelming evidence shows us she's anything but that. I think it's accurate to say that most of my friends and family neighbors are all moderates, and not one of them is a far less socialist progressive. So candidate Aguirre does not represent the silent majority of our community. My neighbors and I are concerned that injecting this kind of outsider progressive socialist politics into our quiet little town has caused division, disrupted the peace, and has raised legitimate safety concerns to all who disagree with open borders, sanctuary cities, and other far less progressive socialist policies and their movement. Thank you.
Josie Hamada. So we have Josie Hamada, Dante Pimentuan, followed by Mitch McKay, followed by Daniel Percival. If you want to just
Good evening. My name is Josie Hamada, and I reside at 1243 Downing Street. Today, what I'd like to say is thank you, Mr. Hall, for your pink, because today my pink represents my family and friends, and we are honoring everybody who has suffered from cancer. And since I'm a leukemic survivor of 45 years, I honor everybody who has gone through that. Now, that's one thing. The other thing, what I wanted to say is I want the city to thank, the community to thank, because on Seacoast Drive, on those big planters, there's finally planters in there. They're drought tolerant. I have no idea who put them in, but in my weekly, daily walk of all the communities, that was there. And my friends were one of the restaurant, the waitresses were over there watering them because they said, you know what, this is our community and we need to take care of that. But finally, I wanted to remind everybody that we have 640 Christmas cards for our vets. That is a project of the Women's Club. And we will continue because our goal this year is to do 1,000 and send on your agenda you have for the vets day that we can have next month. Hopefully on that day that we can finish our goal and then proceed on to IB. Christmas comes to IB in December. So I thank you all for that. And let's make our goal of 1,000 to send to our vets overseas. Thank you.
all right, Dante Pimentuan. Thank you.
Before I begin, I'd like to respectfully ask for my 3 minutes, and I'd like to ask you that you don't cut me off and you don't interrupt me and you don't rush me for my time, okay? I appreciate that. Since 2015, when Serge Dedina took office, he stated that he was to be the mayor of transparency to the voters of Imperial Beach. Over the years, I've noted numerous denials of his conflicts of interest with the San Diego Foundation, his Wild Coast Group, and Salve Coste, the Mexican arm of his nonprofit. The lack of transparency with IB residents not knowing about the relationships with the Council of American Islamic Relations, CAIR, San Diego City politicians Tony Atkins, Todd Gloria, Congressman Juan Vargas, and national public figures like Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel and Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey. Certainly, these are a lot of outside power hitters for our small little beach town of 4 square miles and 28,000 people. This outside political influence has affected our quality of life. It all started in 2014 when $150,000 of union money was given to Serge Dedina and Ed Spriggs by a New York-based hotel union. Last year, our own federal government was sued by the city of IB at a staggering cost of $150,000. Today, it continues with another lawsuit by a millionaire lawyer from Malibu, threatening to sue our unchartered city for failure to realign the districts for fair representation. I question the integrity and judgment of Serge Dedina, our mayor, and representative on the city council. I am disappointed with his lack of transparency with his marijuana industry friends and those outside politicians who continue to donate to his campaign and his nonprofit Wild Coast Environmental Group. So, what have we achieved since Serge Dedina has become mayor? How much time and resources have been used? How much money have we paid out as liability? It's a lot. Look, we all want clean water. That's obvious. My question to this city council is, why does Serge Dedina want a stacked deck of yes votes? Is it to advance rent control policies that negatively affect homeowners and private property advocates? Imperial Beach was one of the first sites in San Diego County to build affordable housing under the Habitat for Humanity project. There's no more room, and the general plan calls for more density, which involves parking and traffic issues. This ultimately is a huge concern for our quality of life. With Serge Dedina publicly endorsing Paloma Aguirre for city council, questions arise again, and the community needs to know. I am publicly endorsing local homeowners and longtime residents who understand what is at stake for our beloved little beach town. Valerie Acivas for mayor. She leads the Imperial Beach Chamber of Commerce and has worked tirelessly for the best interests of Imperial Beach. She is a homeowner, Navy wife, devoted mom and grandmother, and a small business owner selling manufactured homes. Dane Crosby, a lifetime local, not a politician. He is a small business owner. Darnisha Hunter, a homeowner, resident of Imperial Beach for over 2 years. It's time for new leadership and a brighter future for our beach town. Our quality of life depends on it.
Mitch McKay. Mitch, are you coming up? Okay. Daniel Percival.
How are you doing again? I think that cleared some stuff up for me. Thank you a lot, Andy, for all the help you've been giving me. The Sheriff's Department in your community says that being injured by somebody parking on the sidewalk isn't a criminal act. People that park on the sidewalk aren't exercising their duty to the community. It's called public endangerment. At the point where somebody's hurt, that's called criminal negligence. At the point where the person's bills add up to the local statute for grand theft, it becomes a felony. At the point where they continue the exercise parking on the sidewalk 5, 10, 15 times, that's called gross negligence, and that's a felony. At the point where they keep doing it 20, 30, 40 times, that's called depraved indifference, and that's a 5-year minimum sentence up to 15 for parking on the sidewalk in the state of California, but not in San Diego County or apparently in Imperial Beach. Sure would be nice to have some help from my elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Bethany Case, followed by David Frank, followed by Kim Frank, followed by Eric Syverson. I guess Eric Sean.
Hi, thank you. My name is Bethany Case. I am with Clean Border Water Now and Surfrider. Couple things. First, I have tram stuff. Do you want me to do that now or no?
Sure.
Okay. So we did the final event for the tram, the Tijuana River Action Month. And at our cleanup, we had over 100 volunteers, and we picked up over 260 pounds of trash. Chris Harris was awarded the Clean Water Warrior Award for his dedication in showing stakeholders the outrage that is the raw sewage, chemical, and trash issue at the border. I also, second point, wanted to ask the city to consider implementing a straw ban. The city of San Diego just approved their EPS ban, but it included a straws upon request. And so I'd like to ask us to at least do a straws upon request consideration and a ban following that. And now, for me, this is me, not Surfrider. I'm disgusted with what's happening in this town. And no matter what anybody says, there are lies being spread, and they're straight up lies. And I'm tired of it. I want to go on public record saying that I am disgusted, that I'm tired of people telling lies. It doesn't matter who you support whoever you want, but it's disgusting and it's tearing people apart to be so divided. And I want to ask that these people who are spreading lies on either side and who are dropping leaflets at my door as we speak, stop doing that and consider this town. You want this town to be great? Stop dividing people. Thanks.
Thank you. David Frank. Followed by Kim Frank, followed by Stephen Wright, followed by Barton Partlow.
Good evening, Mayor Danita and City Council. My name is David Frank. I live on Loudon Lane. I'm current president of IB Arts Bureau and would like to thank the City Council and staff, particularly Mayor Danita and Pro Tem Mark West, for their support and commitment to the beautification and improvement of Imperial Beach. The Arts Bureau has installed and coordinated several public art projects, including 9 public murals this year. Starting October 27th, we will be coordinating 3 more mural installations to be completed by November 9th. These new projects are located at Dugout at the Sports Park, an alley wall adjacent to the Sports Park, and alley behind 7-Eleven and Domino's at 13th and IB Boulevard. We'll be looking for community volunteers to help with these murals. To date, we've had over 20 artists and 120 local volunteers help with the mural projects. Upon completion of the murals, we will photograph and compile their artistic and thematic information into a 2019 calendar, which will have Imperial Beach calendar events indicated as well. This calendar features IB, is designed in IB, produced in IB, and photographed in IB by local Brian Brillhart. These calendars should be available for sale by Thanksgiving. The proceeds from the calendar sales will be used to fund more public art in Imperial Beach. Major financial contributors to our program include Sun and Sea, Four Walls International, several local businesses, and most importantly, IB Beautiful, without whose support we could not have done this mural program. Thank you, and look forward to your continued support.
Thank you. We have Kim Frank, followed by Stephen Wright, Barton Partlow, and Marco Emerald.
Good
and Carl
evening.
Bradley.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Kim Frank, and I'm an IB resident. I live on Loudon Lane with my better half. And I wanted to invite everybody to a very positive community event that will be happening on Saturday. I'm on the board and a volunteer with Suncoast Market Co-op, and we are a grassroots effort to increase access to healthy food in our community by opening a natural foods grocery store that will be consumer owned. And on Saturday, we're going to be hosting along with Wild Willow Farm, the Farmapalooza Fall Festival. And it's going to be at Wild Willow Farm and Education Center in the Tijuana River Valley from 2 to 7. That will be this Saturday. And we're going to have all kinds of great family activities. We're going to have wood-fired pizza. We're going to have scarecrow making contest, scavenger hunt, face painting, farm tours, a bonfire with s'mores, and live music. So we encourage everyone to come out. It's free. And I hope you will all attend. And if you'd like more information, you can go to our website or Facebook page. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Stephen Wright.
Hello, my name is Stephen Wright. I'm with Four Walls International. I'm co-director. And some of you may not know this, but our organization, in addition to public art, we've been combating cross-border flows of solid waste and sediment for 10 years. And I've been lucky enough to be an IB resident the last 5 of those years. Thank you for always welcoming me to this chamber and for supporting our local work here. It means a lot to us. We've worked hard to increase public art and access to park space here in town. And IB is truly a special place. We also want to thank the mayor and the city council for all their work bringing considerable attention to the cross-border pollution issues, which are complex and dynamic, and doing that through litigation. You know, everybody here has dealt with these issues for a very long time. And as a group that's worked on these issues for some time, it's exciting to potentially capture some of that momentum and attention. So This morning, we were at the Tijuana River Valley Recovery Team meeting, and we presented our latest initiative called the Border Impact Bond. It is a financially sustainable funding mechanism that creates jobs and green infrastructure upstream in Mexico to improve public health downstream in California while saving taxpayers millions of dollars. I'm excited to report that Dave Gibson with the Water Quality Control Board has agreed to oversee the program for the state, and that we have ambitious goals for the 2019 calendar year. I would like to invite everybody to learn more about those goals and how we plan to systematically eliminate marine plastics, tires, and sediment from flowing across the border every year into the estuary and onto IB and Coronado shorelines. The sediment ponds are extremely important, and we will need to build more. These basins, U.S.-based, U.S. side solutions are important. However, we are looking at continuing costs and maintenance expenses to do that, and this is a complementary solution to that. Now, no doubt, I have a flyer here I'm going to pass around. November 3rd, 4 to 6. Coronado Councilmember Whitney Benzian is hosting a fundraiser event for us, and I would definitely like to invite everyone in this chamber, everybody, if you'd like a flyer. It promises to be a lot of fun. It's November 3rd from 4 to 6 p.m. up on the island. And I'll just close by saying that this issue, no doubt, gets a lot of people fired up. And it touches the heartstrings of some. But either way, we will present a very pragmatic solution with achievable goals that resonate on multiple levels and with diverse, sometimes opposing stakeholders. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Mr. Partlow? I'm sorry? I'm not sure to who. There's no card for the person you're donating to. Leon, I don't have a card for you. No, I don't. Leon, I don't have a card for you. What's on the back? I'm not. No. I don't have a card for you, Dan. Did you want to speak? Did you want to speak? Sure, yeah, just fill out a card and I'll put it on this. Bernard, did you want to speak or not?
I had donated my time.
To who? Okay, I don't have a card for. Where I don't. Sorry, Michelle Syverson wants to speak. Just have her fill out a card. So I'm sorry. That's all.
So I am speaking on behalf of my husband since he's not here. My name is Michelle Syverson. I've been a resident for 47 years in the same house that I grew up in. This is an open letter to the city of Imperial Beach and its residents, a geography lesson in controlling polluted flows. After months of exhaustive pictures, hiking in horrible toxic places, and talking to anyone who would talk, I randomly discovered on Monday morning, October 15th, a highly toxic flow in the pilot channel of the Tijuana River at the FEMA crossing and Smuggler's Gulch Port, which did not exist Saturday morning, October 13th. I have it documented with pictures and video. There is no doubt this flow made both boundary of the city of Imperial Beach and ultimately the Pacific Ocean. Since this discovery, the pilot channel has been closed along with most of the horse trails around the area in the San Diego County Tijuana River Open Space Preserve. In addition, the beaches of Imperial Beach south of Seacoast to the international border were closed by county officials Monday, October 15th. This is the longest stretch of beach under city control. This flow ceased sometime early Tuesday and was no longer flowing as of Tuesday morning, approximately 9 a.m. on 10/16. I have this documented as well as pictures, videos, and interview with the county official at the location. I stand here before you today to be corrected. To my knowledge, our city has no procedure, protocol, technology, resource, or personnel to either predict, detect, alert, or mitigate this type or any type of polluted flow that enters the city limits. This is simply unacceptable in 2018. Please correct me, tell me the city has all or any of what I have described in place. I am here to crush the myth that we can't control our own destiny. We can, we will. The river is dry 8 to 9 months out of the year, dry. To my knowledge, The river has not reached the ocean this calendar year until now. That's not what's closing our beaches in the summer. That is direct polluted waters carried on natural currents from Mexico, either Punta Banderas or other sources. So to say we cannot affect the Tijuana River flow is simply false. We cannot, in catastrophic scenarios, winter of 16-17, that will have to be the IBWC South Bay treatment plant and the American version of Sila pump. In 1990s, overflows were handled by the San Diego City and sent either to Point Loma outfall or South Bay outfall. This can be done again with little improvement to existing infrastructures, but still that's San Diego County or San Diego City, and we're only at Dairy Mart Road. By following the river and crossing Hollister, we have entered San Diego County Tijuana River Open Space Preserve and the county-maintained pilot channel. This channel runs from the point west-northwest until finally reaching City Imperial Beach at approximately 15th and Sunset. This is where we act. I have identified 3 spots where the pilot channel is within the city limits of Imperial Beach and 1 location that is controlled by either Navy or Imperial Beach. This is real. I have seen these places and I believe I am right about the boundaries. I also know that the county has a mitigation channel program in both the pilot channel and Smuggler's Gulch channel. Why can't I be? We can, we must. We don't have, why don't we monitor? And why don't we either mitigate or block flows from reaching Imperial Beach or the ocean? Why hasn't technology been employed to warn the rogue flows? Why have city vacuum trucks been dispatched to Tijuana, but not to our own polluted rivers where there are toxic rogue flows? These are questions that I have that I need answers. Attached are more questions that I would like answered. Sorry, he's included personal notes. With this issue, the current direction of the city is flawed and depends upon action from far too many parties and monetary resources we do not have. Our antagonistic attitude towards the federal government has hurt us and our collaborative efforts in Mexico, though noble as have failed us. The idea that our city can and should affect decisions in a foreign country is also flawed. We cannot rely on the fix the source theory that has been applied for the last 4 years. It has failed us in the past. It failed us Monday, and we continue to fail us in catastrophic flow events. This is the start to an array of alternative solutions. We have already lost this week, but we do not have to lose next week or the weeks after or 5 years from now or ever. I have had enough and refuse to stand by without action. Thank you for your time and service.
Thank you so much. Leon Denham.
Hello, I'm sorry to actually be up here to be in this atmosphere, but I think as a public servant or as a public person, I need to speak. My background is I've spent the last 10 years doing environmental restoration of canals, creeks, vernal pools, what have you. And I have to say that the resolution of that was 2.5 in an advanced vision for California's coastal future is whose future? Who depicts and paints that palette of our future? And I look at this document here, the 2016 sea level rise document. And if you want to know who's painting our picture, our future, it's people like the San Diego Foundation, the Coastal Conservancy, Revell Coastal Sea Grant. These are the people that really dictate what we're doing on our coast. And I think they're wrong. In my experience, what has happened in Imperial Beach, these same people in 1999 put an outfall up Imperial Beach with very little public comment. It puts out about 55 million gallons of sewage every day. Now it is treated to stage 1, but recently the OC, the other plant, is putting treated to stage 1, and this is treated to stage 2. But the physical effects on our environment are clear. I went out scuba diving off Imperial Beach just last month at the opening day of lobster season. I got 26 of them. But when you pass and you go into the thermocline, it's a dark mass of solids. And it is a direct health threat to us, as we've all probably know and heard about. So this study that was done, which was done largely outside the purview of the public, and which is now being challenged in court, apparently by the Coastal Commission, they now have a case in front of them for ex parte communication between environmental groups and developers that are outside the public. There's 520 different meetings so far they have identified. So I didn't vote for the outfall. And this document now brings into effect these people that are doing it. Some of the conclusions of this document are that the intent of the managed retreat off Imperial Beach is by 2030, in 12 years, to allow coast to erode, to actually remove the coastal armoring off Imperial Beach. That's part of this plan. So in 2016, after this
Leon,
plan,
did you need more time?
Yeah.
How much more time?
Another minute.
Okay.
So in 2016, this document was sent to the California Coastal Commission that relied heavily on this coastal research, but it had a much more content into allowing high density to come into Imperial Beach. It's clear by this document that even transitory housing, which houses people that are brought in to Imperial Beach to transition into healthy lifestyles, is in this document. Along the 13th Street corridor, especially, they expect 10 to 15,000 more people in Imperial Beach. I think that's just incomprehensible about our lifestyle. And what are we giving up? And I'd say if the city needs to rethink what its future has for us, and to make the right decisions, to hold back on these policies, so that a thorough public vetting could be had. Because I don't like what I see as far as what the future holds for us. I think we're a gem. We're a beautiful city, and I just don't want to put that at risk. Thank you all.
Great, thank you. Marco Amaral. After Marco is Carl Bradley, and then Marcus Boyd.
Muy buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Good evening. I'm not one to hold my tongue, so here we go. First, to the people of Imperial Beach, let's not take this group seriously. I have been dealing with the likes of Roger Ogden for a couple of years now. His hatred and bigotry, they're definitely in the minority. I see you, Roger. All right. Please, read in between their lines, his lines. They aren't talking about policy. There are personal attacks on the poor, on minorities, on those that are trying to capture a bit of the livable life. You would think that this group of patriots would be proud of someone like Paloma that came here the right way and has worked really hard to get where she is at. Let's be real. There is some ugliness in IB, and it's okay to recognize that, to talk about that. Paloma is a fluent Spanish Mexican American, but as American as they come, and has shown resilience in working with officials on both sides of the border. And for the first time in this long dreaded history, we are finally doing something about our water. Y'all be acting like it's easy to work with TJ officials. I love to imagine IB for all. An IB that encourages equity and fairness, empathy and collaboration. Serge, Mark, Ed, y'all know that I'm someone that doesn't hold back my tongue on corruption, and I hope you address some of the issues that have been raised. But I thank you for forging an IB for all. I thank you for trying to do that. I think conversations, sincere community conversations must happen. But I think we're moving forward, and I think that's the important part. I think we need to be resilient now more than ever, especially in the times we're living today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carl Bradley.
Mayor Danita, members of the council, my name is Carl Bradley. I reside at 607 Thorn Street. I was originally going to commend the mayor and the council for an item that was pulled off the agenda for advancing a vision for California's coastal future. That item obviously was pulled from the agenda, but after the first few minutes of this meeting, I felt compelled to stand up and tell you that as staff over 27 years for 4 school districts, I've attended a great number of public meetings, but I've never seen a free-for-all like the first couple meetings of this minute. If we allow our public meetings to devolve into shouting matches, we can have neither effective communication nor good governance. Dialogues between members of the community and the mayor or other council members shouting things out, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable on both sides of the aisle. And I'm here to encourage the mayor and the council to strictly enforce decorum. And by that, I mean having people act like grown-ups at these meetings. It's not a shouting match. It's not about who can talk louder. It's about having cogent opinions and our right as American citizens to express those opinions in a calm manner. That being said, I'd like to make a statement regarding electioneering. So far as I know, electioneering is strictly prohibited at city council meetings in most jurisdictions. And I will say at this meeting, I've seen it on both sides, but I would strongly recommend that the mayor and the council not allow people to make statements that support or oppose any candidate. If you support a candidate, vote for them. If you oppose them, vote against them. But to blatantly campaign at a city council meeting is unacceptable, professional. And I can see, because Imperial Beach is such a small town and the type of person the mayor is, who grew up here and knows everybody in town, it's kind of easy to get sucked into a conversation with somebody in the audience, but the mayor is under no obligation to do that, nor is any other council member. And it might seem a bit harsh, but this citizen thinks maybe you shouldn't do that. So that's the sum of my statements, and thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Marcus Boyd. Is Marcus here? There you go.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City staff. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I heard some things that could use some light. Not necessarily correction, but some additional thought. The sea rise question that has been in question because of who is supporting fixing the problem, at least initially, is unfortunately not weighed well. There is one company in America that has weighed in on this question, and it's not a company that has anything to do with conservation, care about the coastal line. They only care about their pocket, and that company is State Farm Insurance. State Farm Insurance has worldwide moved coverage 1,000 feet back from any coastal line. So at 1,000 feet back, they will not write property insurance at all. Now, some other people have said, well, companies sometimes go through moratoriums. That is in areas, and they're always temporary. This has been issued as permanent, which means State Farm is the leader of insurance in America for personal lines coverage, by twice as large as any other carrier in the nation. That company has decided to pull back 1,000 feet, which means all the other companies will follow suit. They didn't pull back because they want Mayor Dedina to be mayor. They didn't pull back because they want the coastal organizations to be more profitable. They pulled back because they actually believe the science and have applied it to risk analysis, and they have left the most prime real estate in the world to other companies. Good luck with that, they said. Now, I'd also like to thank the council for changing the direction of Imperial Beach. I've been in Imperial Beach for 16 years in business. I found it very difficult to do business with the city. I was pushed back at every angle, including the Chamber of Commerce, until current. The Chamber of Commerce under Valerie is the same Chamber of Commerce it's been. It's been extremely non-inclusive. They don't inform the business community. The stores in Imperial Beach are not part of the Chamber of Commerce because of Valley. So she's not inclusive. I appreciate the council's inclusiveness to this end. Thank you and have a good night.
You approve the calendar number 2.1, 6.6.
Motion carried unanimously.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, you could repeat, because it was fairly quickly, that we just approved the consent agenda. That's all.
Thank you. Item 4.1, public hearings and resolution number 2018-7968, adopting an amendment to the 2018 Regional Transportation Improvement Program covering fiscal years 2019 to 2023 for the appropriation of carryover funds. Public hearing open. Public Works Director Minicelli will give the report. Eric.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mayor and council, here comes one.
Didn't we want to take a break?
No.
No. Okay. Okay.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here tonight for a public hearing for an amendment to the 2018 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, which covers fiscal years 19 through 23. So the RTIP, as it's known, it's covered Transnet. It was approved in November 2004, and it's a 40-year program, which is a half-cent sales tax, transportation sales tax. And the program actually requires all agencies to submit a program of projects listing the projects that it will fund with the funds from that sales tax. So here we have the table that lists the two different ways that we as a city use the transit funds. So at the very top, you'll see the first row, and that's actually the estimated funds that we would get from Transnet. So 2019, for example, we're supposed to get $700,000 in funds. The way it's broken down, we can't use more than 30% for street maintenance operations, which is kind of like pothole repairs and crack sealing. And the rest of it we have to use for major street improvements. So this past year, July 18th, I presented on the 2018 RTIP, and council approved the program of projects for that RTIP program. As part of that RTIP program for the major street improvements, there's a list of streets in the city that were approved. And that list of streets was actually selected by our pavement management program. And these are the list of streets which are programmed to be used to be funded for improvement projects. So the reason I'm here today, this 2018 RTIP was approved actually last month through SANDAG. The SANDAG Board of Directors approved it. But every 2 years, the RTIP gets updated. We're currently in the 2018 RTIP, as I mentioned, and that covers the next 5 years. The last RTIP was a 2006 RTIP, and from that RTIP, there is $328,000 that's left over for that RTIP. So all we're doing is simply carrying over that amount of money, available funds, to the 2018 RTIP. In order to do it, we need to do a public hearing and submit a formal amendment. So anytime president funds are updated, we need to do a formal amendment. So this amendment will appropriate the $328,000 available and carryover funds to the IB-12 Major Street improvements. And it also affirms council's previously approved streets for the Major Street improvement. The options that council has are to approve resolution 2018-7968, adopting an amendment to the 2018 RTIP covering fiscal years 2019 through 2023 for the appropriation of carryover funds. Approve resolution number 2018-7968 and adopt an amendment to the 2018 RTIP covering fiscal years 2019 through 2023 as modified by City Council, or request additional information and an additional report. I'm open to questions.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Rick?
Thanks for the report. Very succinct. I read the report and I wasn't quite clear. Maybe I missed it. These are carryover funds, the 328,000 that were not part of the budget and streets that we approved a while back.
If you go back to
we're adding these 328 carry forward funds that weren't used.
Correct. So for the table.
Yep. So if that's true, I guess my question is, are we going to be able to do more with the streets that were approved with this additional money? Are we going to add streets? What is the difference that this additional carry forward money added to the pot of things that we've approved is going to make? What's the difference that it's going to make?
Okay. That's a good question. So what we're doing is simply carrying over the funds. So 2016 to 2018, the actually the $328,000 are already part of a project, the RTIP 1718 project, and that's the paving project I presented a couple months ago. So those funds are already allocated to that project. So this is just transferring over the fund.
Oh, it's simpler than I thought then. Okay, thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah. Great. I'm closing the public hearing, and I'd like to entertain a motion. So you guys can hear. Close the public. I'm closing the public hearing. I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2018-7968.
Yeah.
What?
I just want to clarify for the record, were there any public comment
Oh, no public
cards?
I don't have any public comments.
Okay.
Then I'll motion.
No public.
Second.
Please vote. Great. Thank you.
Councilmember Spriggs, please vote. Motion carried unanimously.
All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break to allow the consultant to set up item 4.2. And if the members of the public like to have refreshments, we have refreshments in the community room. Thank you.
Just for you, Carl. Just for you. There should be beer.
No beer. Don't want to fuel anything.
Right here. PTA. Pull out internet. Or no. Yeah. Should work. Picture displays. All right, resolution's a little long, but it's displaying.
Is it cold in here? Oh, I'm not fine. Dude.
Oh. The city council meeting will reconvene in 1 minute.
We're gonna reconvene at 7:07. So if there are council members outside, please come back. What is this, like high school? Lori, are people back there? It's my fault. I should have said we're going to reconvene at a certain time.
I was just telling him how we're just following it around. Like, yeah. Thank you.
I think we'll find a bottle of water. Water.
Yeah, in fact,
Can we start item 4.2? Public hearing to receive input concerning district maps for city council election district boundaries and the sequencing of elections. Declaring the public meeting open. City Attorney Lyon will introduce the item.
Mayor and City Council, this is our third public hearing on the item relating to districting, and I'm going to turn it over to our consultant from National Demographics Corporation, Doug John.
Good evening. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. For those that have been to the earlier hearings, the little introduction presentation will be a little repetitive because we've been through the kind of educational piece of this at the earlier hearings. I want to go through it for people who may not have been at those earlier meetings. And then the big step that we're at now is looking at the draft maps. So after I go through the PowerPoint, then I'll switch over and show you the maps we've received. And we do have a bunch of maps. It's been good to see people have definitely responded, and we've received a number of maps from the public for this process. I do want to mention as well that all the maps, the PowerPoints, the schedule, and everything is on the city website. We put together a very comprehensive site that has all kinds of information, and I'll be using some of the links from that today. I do want to mention on the topic of maps, if people read the staff report, it mentioned 10 maps came in after the deadline. That was 2 sentences that should have been separate. 10 maps came in and were posted after the deadline. So there are no maps that have come in that aren't posted or they came in too late. So I do want to clarify that. Thank you. So let me jump in. First of all, what's driving this change is the California Voting Rights Act. It is a state law that has made it much easier for plaintiffs to bring challenges to at-large or potential plaintiffs, bring challenges to at-large jurisdictions, really by taking the Federal Voting Rights Act, which has been around a long time, and just what a couple of lawyers who had fought federal cases wrote the law, and they simply took out the provisions that had led to their losing cases. And so they left in the stuff that makes it very easy for plaintiffs to win. I've written a paper with my Vice President, Justin Levitt, talking about this is a quiet tsunami sweeping the state. These numbers are now a little dated, but we have 165 school districts that have been forced to change their election system, 28 community college districts, a number of which were in this area in San Diego County. 80 plus cities, when we made the PowerPoint, that was true. We're now over 100 cities. And just for perspective, before this law was in place, there were only 29 cities in the whole state that had district elections. So we've now added over 100 to those original 29 because of this law. One county board of supervisors, the reason there's only one is the other 57 were already by district. So the last one, San Mateo, was sued and they had to switch. And now we're starting to see a lot of activity in special districts. So the big one, obviously, Imperial irrigation, people are fairly familiar with that. They were challenged and forced to switch. We're seeing, we just worked with Tri-City Healthcare District on their switch, and we're seeing all kinds of special districts across the state. And it is worth emphasizing that it's not because these roughly 300 jurisdictions are violating anyone's voting rights. Or civil rights of any kind. What's driving this big tsunami is the money side. So Palmdale fought the challenge, and they ended up paying the plaintiffs $4.7 million and paying just under $2 million for their own legal defense. Same thing, Modesto, $3 million to the plaintiffs, $2 million on their own defense. And just last week, Santa Clara, which lost their Superior Court case, got the fee demand from the plaintiffs for $4.1 million. So it's these huge dollar amounts that are driving the massive change. Primarily, I should emphasize, because once you go to district elections, then you're in a safe harbor. You can't be sued and can't be subjected to these fees. As the city attorney mentioned, we are well into this process, but it is a fast process with lots of steps, is how I tend to describe it. State law does require 5 formal public hearings in the process. So tonight is number 3. The first 2, though, were purely informational and educational. There were no maps submitted or no maps presented at those. The maps that we're looking at tonight came out of those hearings and came out of the input we received at those hearings, and then were posted a week ago. So state law requires that people have a week to look at the maps. People can still submit maps. If they take the ideas tonight and want to propose changes, they need to get those in by the 29th, because we have to get them posted by the 31st. And it's important to note that it's not a submit by 31st date. The city has to have them posted by the 31st. So we are asking for them by the 29th. And then we'll be back on the 7th, which will be more of a picking a map evening. As opposed to tonight, we have a lot more flexibility to look at maps, look at possible changes, and things like that. And then we're in a little bit of an odd timing situation here, as is everyone in the state going through this. Because we're so late in the decade, and because the lines have to be updated after the 2020 census, the lines adopted through this process will be used for the 2020 election. The 2 districts will hold elections. And then the census data comes out in 2021, and the lines have to be updated. So the 2022 districts, it'll probably be small changes, just population balancing, but they will be redrawn before they actually hold an election. Looking at the rules for districts. So what are the rules that these lines have to meet? There are really 2 sets of criteria. The first is the federal law. And these are things we have to do. We have to have an equal number of people in each district. A very, very small margin allowed on that. And it is 2010 census population that we use as that count. We all know we're 8 years in, the numbers are off, but the courts have said use that number, and that's, again, a safe harbor. Then we have to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, which says if there is a neighborhood that is heavily what the law calls a protected class, here we're really talking about Latinos, a neighborhood that is heavily Latino, you can't divide it in a way that dilutes their voting strength. So we're keeping an eye out on that. And then no racial gerrymandering. At the same time as you have to pay special attention to neighborhoods that are heavily one protected class, you do have to focus on neighborhoods. You'll see in a second, I can estimate the ethnic makeup of every city block in the city and put that on a colored map showing different percentages. But you can't draw a district by going along those lines. If race is your predominant factor, then the map is illegal for going too far. So those are the 3 legal requirements. Those are the things you have to do to adopt a map. Then where the choices come down is what we call traditional criteria. And you're really looking for the map that achieves the best balance of these. It's impossible to fully achieve every one of them, because some of them contradict each other or are overridden by the equal population requirement. So we're looking to respect communities of interest, follow your neighborhoods and other communities as they wish to be represented, and I'll talk about that in a second. You want the districts to be compact, contiguous, and try to follow major roads. All of those are so it's easy for the voters to know where their district borders are. When they want to go knock on doors for a candidate they like, you want it to be easy to figure out which doors to knock on. And then another criteria, and again, these are in the goals, not the requirement side, is to respect the voters' choices. To the degree possible, we want the voters to be deciding which council members have earned re-election. And to do that, we try to keep council members in separate seats to the degree possible. Or if that's not possible, to put council members who are up in the same cycle in one seat together so that both can run. And at least if districting force means someone can't be reelected, at least the voters will be choosing to be reelected. So again, that's a goal, it's not a requirement. And then planned future growth we mentioned, so people aren't surprised by its mention in 2021. Since these lines will only be used in 2020, there's not a lot of planned growth going to happen. So we're not really looking at that now. It'll be more of a consideration in 2021. One thing that there's a lot of in this process is data. A lot of data. But there's all kinds of data that we provide for every district in every map. And we break down things all the way down to like renters versus owners, and these are estimates. Multifamily housing versus single family housing, education income levels. All this data is available so that anyone in the community who wants to see, can we get a district that is heavily renters, or can we get a district that is heavily multifamily residents, those kinds of factors, they can go through the maps and evaluate which map best meet those criteria. Of course, the key number is the top left one. Total population is 26,324, means that each district has to have 1/4 of that. And I mentioned we can show the protected classes, and for the Voting Rights Act, we need to focus on neighborhoods that are heavily one protected class. I mean, this is not going to be a surprise to anyone, I don't think, but they're really north of, in the northeast and in the east parts of the city, you obviously have much denser Latino populations. And there really are no similar concentrations of African Americans or Asian Americans, which is why I mentioned we're mainly focusing on the Latino. One note of mention about communities of interest. A neighborhood is really whatever the residents who live there say it is. It can be defined by streets, it can be defined by a park, it can be defined by a school attendance zone, whatever the residents in that area say. And that comes up a lot in the hearings, and there's been some comments about that in the earlier hearings. The key second question, though, that a lot of people forget is, okay, this is your community of interest. This is your neighborhood. Do you want to be concentrated so that you have the best chance of electing someone to represent your district by having everyone from your neighborhood in that district? Or do you want to be divided? Some, maybe a quarter to a third of communities actually say, we don't want just one council member that we vote for. We want 2 that have to come and campaign in our neighborhood and address issues at campaign time that are specific to our neighborhood. And in particular, when you have an at-large mayor in a city with 5 council members, keep in mind, if you have 2 council members campaigning in your neighborhood, plus the at-large mayor, well, you now have a majority of the council that is accountable to your neighborhood. Obviously, each voter can only have 1 council member, but if you divide an area, yes, it reduces the chances that your neighborhood would elect someone from your area to either seat, but it makes sure that you have 2 council members plus the mayor coming in and accountable to you in the district. So very briefly, as I mentioned, sometimes we get regional maps. These are just samples to illustrate the point I was just making. Both of these maps are kind of traditional maps. You have quadrants, you have in Compton, each corner of the city to the degree possible within the equal population requirements has its own seat. Glendale, the school district, similarly, very clear. These are kind of traditional, what you think of when you think of redistricting. But equally valid are some maps that have been adopted that divide up communities on their request. Again, we're respecting the desires. Pasadena, if you've ever heard of Old Town Pasadena, extremely successful, huge redevelopment project. It's the classic, no one goes there anymore because it's too crowded kind of thing. When they went to district elections, that didn't exist yet. And so they drew the district so that every district would touch Colorado Boulevard, which is where Old Town is. And that gave each council member a personal feeling of accountability and connection to that project. South Pasadena, tiny, 1 square mile city. They had to go to district elections because of the California Voter Rights Act challenge, but they wanted each district to keep kind of an at-large feel. So you can see it didn't really work on the east side, but for 3 of the districts, they go from north to south, and they really touch every neighborhood in the city. So each council member, even though they're from district, is still involved in every issue. Same thing with Central Unified. The school board wanted to be sure that 3 board members represented every school's attendance zone. So you end up, when you go for this policy issue, you end up with a funny looking map. All 3 of these are funny looking, but it's for a policy reason. And so that comes up maybe a third of the time. Down here in San Diego, an issue we get a lot, we did Solana Beach and Encinitas, and there were comments like, we want every district to touch the beach, or in some cases, every district to touch the beach and the commercial corridor along a freeway. And that's the kind of thing like you get in South Pasadena kind of map, where you'd be stretching districts to make sure that they touch the area. So, oops. There we go. So again, this is the presentation, kind of the informational part that we've done at the prior 2 hearings as well. The new thing tonight is that I'm about to jump into the maps and walk through the draft maps for you. And the goal tonight is public comment and council, and followed by council comment and direction on the maps. And again, we can kind of look at changes to the map at this point. When we come back again, we'll be getting into the, choose a map that'll go into the ordinance in the formal ordinance process. So there's a lot less flexibility at that point. With that, let me switch over here. I mentioned the city website. Again, there's lots of information. The schedule is up here. The original documents that the letter that came that started this process, the resolution of intent that the council already did, the public hearing notices, and the videos from the earlier hearings are all on here. Also on here, that we spent a lot of time on at the first 2 hearings, is the kit. So it has numbers and people can use it to draw their own proposed districts and send those in. It's still here with a lot of information in both English and Spanish. And let me jump into the draft maps though. I'm happy to come back and talk about any of this later on too. So we got 10 maps in, which for a small jurisdiction is actually pretty good. And part of the thing, people always say, 26,000 people, what's 10? Well, there aren't that many ways to divide up the city as well. So 10 is pretty good. What we usually say is if you get 5 or 6, you're probably getting a good feel for what is the mix. Yes, we can fiddle with the edges, but that's good participation. It was good to see people sit down and type in the numbers and start putting the numbers together. I'm going to jump over. We definitely encourage people to look at the maps in this interactive viewer. Have it open. I should probably do that though. On each of these links is a link to a PDF map that someone can print out at home, and also the demographic breakdowns. All those stats I showed earlier are broken down in each of these PDF files for each of the maps. But if we're looking at the details of the maps and where the lines go, we really recommend using this interactive map. It essentially works like ArcGIS. I'm sorry, like this is ArcGIS, but it works like Google Maps. You have plus and minus, you can zoom in, you can zoom out. You can actually switch the base map so that you can put satellite image on. So a lot of times people say, well, where exactly is this border going? Well, if I zoom in, you can actually see the buildings. Or you can put satellite with labels that'll give you some of the street names. The other thing that I want people to be aware of is the Open Streets map. You have to scroll down for it. Open Streets is a competitor to Google, but their goal is to try to label every business and government and educational institution. So if you put that base map in, you can see here's the Chase Bank. They're trying to fill in as many labels so you can see exactly where the lines go and know the building for people that know the area. So we have a variety of ways of looking at maps in here. For this process, I'll go with the default. So first of all, let me mention there were, of the 10 maps that came in, 3 were not population balanced. People were showing their ideas, but they weren't fine-tuning the numbers to try to get them balanced. So let me just mention those briefly. Make sure I cover them all, because I do want to be sure people see them. So the first is the McKay 1 map. Go down. And you can see, I'll be touching on some themes among the maps. This really, kind of look at this, even though it has a big southern area, it's kind of a diamond for the populated area. This one didn't work out to be population balanced, but it does convey that the submitter was looking at that pattern for districts making sense for the city. The next one hit is the Pilgrim 2 map that was Sure.
Maps named after them. Mitch, I think it's awesome, the McKay map. That's going to go into the record forever. I think it's great.
Yeah. So. Well, and this is what we love to see. I always get, one comment I get a lot is, well, if the council, are you going to feel bad if the council adopts a public map and not one of the ones that the professional demographer drew? No, we love it. It means we did our job and got people interested.
I'm a geographer, so this is great.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Pilgrim map 2, this is something that, there are a bunch of maps like this that can have 2 horizontal east to west districts up top, and then take the southern part of the city and go more vertical with them. And so his was followed that pattern. And then the third one, is more of a regional, 1 across the top, and then 3 blocks for the rest of the districts. So those 3, they were submitting their ideas. They weren't doing the math to add the numbers up, but it was worth mentioning their ideas. The 3 non-contiguous maps, I think, all come from the same issue. And one of the things we do is we provide an Excel sheet, so people that don't want to add the numbers up by hand can just type in the Excel sheet. Yeah.
Can you define a non-contiguous, please?
Yeah. So the pieces of the districts don't touch. So just for example, this one is a classic example of what happens when people use the Excel kit. The problem is the Excel gives you the population numbers, but it doesn't draw the map automatically. And so people's populations are a little bit off, and they see in the row in the Excel sheet, oh, here's the 300 people I need, and they switch it. So, and that's clearly, that's what's happening. You can see the makeup of the map they wanted. If it was obvious to switch it back, we would just do that automatically for them. But in all 3 of these cases, if we fix it, it throws the population off. So we mention it so you can see what they were thinking about. It's not that they failed; they just got tripped up by the Excel technical side. And at least 2 of them, I'm sure, like this, were not intentionally drawing a non-contiguous map. There's that one, and the pink map again. You've got in the Excel sheet, they saw that they could swap this green piece and this purple sheet and balance them, and just didn't catch that those pieces didn't touch. But again, you can see this is one that has 2 northern districts and 2 southern districts. And the last one, this is the only one I wasn't sure if this was on purpose or not. You can see where District 3 is split by District 4. So in part, that's because we're not giving them the fine-tuned census block control that I have on my laptop, because they're having to add these numbers up by hand. So, but you can see this is similar, kind of 2 horizontal districts and then 2 southern districts.
Excuse me, though. They may not have, when I looked at these earlier, I think some of them made mistakes, but I'm not sure everyone made that just because they put there are other cities that have non-contiguous groups, right? There's some out there that are pretty close to non-contiguous, right?
There are some that are close to non-contiguous, but they are contiguous. Okay. The one thing that you may see in maps is it's considered contiguous if you jump over a county island or any non-city territory. The rule is that a district can't be split by another district.
Gotcha. What if you jump over an estuary?
Well, if it's city territory, then you have an issue, because all your territory has to be assigned. So
you know where our estuary is.
Yeah.
So you jump over to seacoast.
Yeah, because it's city territory, it would be assigned to a district and it'd be one district splitting another, even though there's no people there. If it was, you get this a lot in like North Carolina with the, you know, the what do they call the offshore area? You
Well,
got the banks.
The sound is the middle part.
Yeah,
The water part.
Yeah, you jump over the water all the time, but that's not another district. So I do want to touch those so that you got the idea that those 6 were trying to convey to the council, even if the specific map they submitted doesn't meet the technical legal requirements. But that still left, with those 6 out, we still had 4 maps from the public and then the 3 that NDC drew in there. I do want to emphasize, we kind of cheat. We go last. So we got to see the 10 maps that people submitted and capture the ideas and kind of fine tune them. So it's not that those 6 I just showed you were out. They clearly informed the 3 that NDC drew as the process goes forward. And we added in one other. One of our goals is, and when we're drawing maps, is to make sure you have the full range of options before you. So one that wasn't like anything else that we drew is what we called NDC horizontal. In this case, granted, down south, District 4 isn't getting population, but it is getting territory. This is somewhat, you know, a big factor here is obviously the beach and the ocean. So this is, if you wanted to have all 4 districts touching the beach, this is one way it could be done, and touching the east side of the town too. So we call this horizontal because all 4 districts stretch across. Another unique map that stands by itself is the Rivera Frink map that one of your residents drew. Very interesting, creative. It kind of got a central corridor district in here. So you have really one beach district, a central corridor district, which also gets to the beach down south, and then 2 separate eastern districts. So very different, and nothing else really looked like this in the maps that we received. Those are 2 different ones. Kind of a regional theme. Let me start with McKay 2. This one, it's not the squares of the Compton map, it's more of a diamond. But you have a northern seat, a western seat, a southern seat, an eastern seat. So broken out, and the maps I'm showing you now are all population balanced and contiguous. You are getting a different breakout. When you're doing this, the streets here are kind of square. So when you try to follow a different pattern, you end up with kind of what we call stair steps. But these would be considered very compact seats. Similar on a regional front, looking at the Rose 2 map. There are a number of variations, and we saw some of these earlier, where you have 2 northern seats, 2 southern seats. In this case, one of the southerns really coming up the beach. 3 and 4 south of Imperial Beach Boulevard, and 1 and 2 to the north. In this case, 1, is unusual shape. It kind of has the foot coming off of it, but it's clear they're really combining the area north of the highway, which I think they're going to refer to as Palm. So everything north of the highway, and then the far east edge south of that. And then on a similar theme, kind of building off of those ideas that we saw, is NDC. We drew a quadrants version, which instead of being a diamond is more of a square. But you do get a little bit of population balancing and being compact with 3 and 4 overlapping a little bit. And then the other theme that came up a lot, and this is the last theme, is kind of a blended approach. Let me start with Rose 1. And the blended horizontal district. So you get a far north seat, then a seat above Imperial going, in this case, not quite all the way across. Below Imperial Beach, really getting 2 vertical seats, one in the southwest and one in the southeast. The NDC blended is a similar approach, where you get the population concentration in the southeast, population in the southwest, and then 2 horizontal maps above it. So we really have 13 maps, a lot of maps, but really 3 key themes. One is kind of the quadrants or diamond approach. One is a blended approach. And then and then the unique maps, the Rivero map or the horizontal map. Again, just to reinforce, the demographics are in detail for all these maps on the city website. And the last piece, which will be more of it, is more of an issue when we get around to one or two final maps, but we do need to mention it, is sequencing, which is how do you decide which seats are up in 2020 and which seats are up in 2022. It can get very complicated. As a general rule, by law, you have to have 2 in 2020 and 2 in 2022. You have to follow the current cycle. Otherwise, you end up with the wrong number of people up at the dais. Correct. Yeah, 2 in each year is required. Then there are really 2 big factors that we look at, or we suggest looking at, when the council is deciding which 2 will be up in each year. Number 1 is we want to empower the voters. So if there is a council member who's alone in a seat or 2 council members who are up in the same cycle in a seat, we suggest put that seat on that cycle so that the voters get to decide if that council member has earned re-election. In your case, the mayor will remain at large. One council member is not running for re-election, so we'll have at least 1 vacant seat in here, and so we'll have to figure out how to deal with that. When you have a vacant seat, then what we suggest, or multiple vacant seats, which is always bad thing. You have lots of options, and the community may have other thoughts and Imperial Beach specifics. But in general, we tend to look at what seats have the lowest typical turnout. And in the demographics, there are registration and turnout counts for each district. And you try to put the low turnout seats on the presidential election cycle. That way, you're getting the most people voting for the city council as possible. It doesn't have to be, but it's kind of a traditional practice to try to follow. So again, we'll go in, when we actually have narrowed this down to just a couple of options, we'll go into different scenarios and how those 2 ideas fit into this specific map. But those are the things we're looking for, and we're certainly welcome and encourage public comment on those ideas at this point too. That's my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions you have now or after.
Well, we'll do public comment. I want to thank you. Actually, you made a really complicated subject actually really accessible. So I think, and then I want to thank all the residents who provided the maps. It's actually pretty interesting to have residents of a city do map making. Might have been something that was carried out like in the 14th century, right? When residents were charting their territories and as they moved west. So I want to thank to actually crunch data and crunch demographics and then crunch space as well. It's actually worked out really well. So it shows that, when you study statistics, people tend to choose the same type of things. And it's very clear that people who know the city kind of intuitively understand neighborhoods. I mean, there's some differences, but anyways, very interesting. All right, so thank you very much. I'm going to do the public comment now. Then we can ask questions afterward.
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, Paula Hall, Sweetwater trustee Paula Hall's here. Is Paula here?
Mayor, go ahead and open the public hearing so we can.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I declare the public hearing open. I did a public comment open on. I'm sorry, declaring the public comment open. Okay.
Actually, I would work you're doing on this because I think it is important to give a balance to the people who vote and a voice for the people who feel disenfranchised. I'll be studying these and probably sharing them with some of the populations that attend our schools in your area. So thank you for the hard work you're doing to represent. I know that it's not easy, especially when people come up and say such negative things. So I appreciate all the work you're doing for our city. I've lived here for over 30 years and I do, my husband's family grew up here, so we have a vested interest in IB, and I know the work you're doing is very important, and I appreciate all of that. And I agree with Bethany Case, who commented earlier about I think there's a lot of hateful rhetoric that's being repeated over and over in this, and this platform is being used by the public to do that. I think that's, I'm very sorry to see that happening in our city, but I appreciate you guys holding strong and moving forward with some really good things. So I was on your website tonight of maps. So when he answered one of the questions I was going to come up here with. So I appreciate that. And I think you guys are holding public meetings through December on this. So you're not rushing into something. You're going to be allowing the public to weigh in and to learn about it. So thank you for that as well.
Wait, I have a question. So the Sioux District implemented districts
Correct.
in 2014, is that correct?
Right.
Was it a similar process to
Yes.
this?
We had public hearings, and we had the County Board of Ed was actually sitting as the Board of Trustees. They came down to hold those public hearings for that purpose. And we heard from not only public, parents and students and there weren't that many elected officials that came. I personally was a parent at the time on the District Advisory Council. I had sent emails and made phone calls to the then sitting council and mayor, none of whom responded to or attended those because of the importance it was to bring what used to be representation only from the eastern side of our district, but to make sure that all the different areas of our school district had a voice in the decision-making process and what was going on. And I think that since that happened, and we did we had similar presentations from the demographers that did that work for us and the different mappings. And it was about balancing the different, whether there were Latino voters, ethnicity, I don't know if that's the right term in this language, but, income, all those things were balanced in what we reviewed and saw. And different people from different groups came and spoke at those meetings so that they had a voice. Then the decision was to recommend that we move forward with that. The county made that recommendation to the State Board of Ed, and they approved that recommendation. So I think since we did that, there's been a definite change in how people feel represented, and you see that yourself in what's going on in our district and the impact it's had to the schools on the west side.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Pimentuan?
Good evening. I just wanted to let you know I'm Filipino by birth, American by choice, and I see this whole redistricting. I don't really want to base a redrawing of the maps based on some skewed data that's on here on the voter registration. So for me, there's Filipino surname and there's Asian surname, and it's just a lot of skewed data. And I believe Imperial Beach, I've been a resident and homeowner of Imperial Beach since 1990. And Imperial Beach has always been a small, conservative, patriotic beach town. And we are unique. We have representation with Juan Vargas in the 51st district. That covers the entire district of Imperial Beach. And Juan Vargas is Hispanic. So I'm just trying to ask maybe that we can use because we're so unique, in terms of our makeup of our city, in terms of the population. But we have a congressman, Juan Vargas. He's Hispanic, and he covers the entire district of Imperial Beach. I like the way that we've always had our district. It's a very good system, and it's been working. I don't agree with the rush to look at this and get all these mappings, and this is a lot of money. This is a lot of time and effort on our part. So I know that the city of Imperial Beach is under the gun by this Malibu lawyer, and it's an outside, it's an outsider type of influence that's again affecting our city and our quality of life here. So I think there's fair representation already here in Imperial Beach. We have that in Juan Vargas, and he's the Democrat lawyer. It's going to be like that. And if he's the congressman, that's right. It's federal. So you guys are looking at the state voter law. That's something that you can challenge. So I'm just looking at that. I appreciate the residents that put in the maps. You guys look like you put in a lot of work. So, but for this redistricting, I think it's very political. I think you know, we're all Americans, and here in Imperial Beach, we all have, you know, a right to vote. I served in the Marine Corps for that right, and I just want to thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, Mr. Benjamin Fun. Marco Amaral. After Marco, it's John Becker, then Alicia House, Marty Emerald.
Again, buenas noches. Good evening. Well, I think it's very simple. There is no real argument, actual argument based on logical flow of reasoning, that someone would be against making IB more equitable. There's only one flow of logic that would go against making IB more equitable. And well, it's not a logic that I think we want to follow as a community. It might be a logic that we are following as a nation, but I think IB is different. And so I think that breaking up of the districts would be good for us. You know, I think we need to pay attention to the dynamics that are happening in our city. And we need to do what we can institutionally, but also socially, to fight against those dynamics. And so I think this is a good first step. And, you know, essentially, I'm for it as a community member. And I know that the community members that I've spoken to are for it as well. And I would urge a yes vote, and on, you know, look into the data, look into what the professionals have said in terms of a yes vote that would give us the best representation to the dynamics and context of Imperial Beach. I trust, and we'll do it with the best of intentions, looking forward to a brighter future. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much. John Becker.
Good evening. First off, I've played with maps like this in all types of situations. There's no perfect map. You won't please everybody, and every map will be different, so you just get close enough. And one of those guiding principles should be, is it close enough to achieve the objective of distributing the council people across the cities? I recommend you focus on racial, ethnic contributions of the city population, because as we're dispersed all across the city, and 153% to 48%, it all will work out in the ballot, and we're open enough. We live as a community. We should vote as a community and disregard that and focus on neighborhoods, so like interests can be represented in your daily lives and not so much in their ethnic, and make divisions that way. The big question I have for the city council is, will council members be required to live as a permanent resident of the districts we create? Normally, in situations, you represent the district you live in.
So I'm clear what you're asking. Are you asking about existing council members or the new one? Okay.
The future, as we divide, because right now you represent the city because you live in the city. In the future, we are going to have 4 districts. So as councilmen from those new 4 districts be required to live in those districts to experience the livelihood and the neighborhoods that they're supposed to represent. I think that's a critical point, not for you today, but for us in the future, to see who we have representing us. Do they live in our neighborhood, or they live across town? Because that's the difference when they see the noise, the parking, possibly the shots going off at night. Not so much anymore, but that could be an issue if you live in the neighborhood and you make a representation of your neighborhood properly and I would recommend you live in the district You focus on the districts and the neighborhoods, disregard the racial stuff because we're all mixed together. We all live together. And that way we don't make divisions by population and peoples and ethnicities. We focus on our neighborhoods and represent our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Alicia House.
Good morning, council members. My name is Felicia, and I think I'll let you know where I live. I live at 1039 Cherry Avenue. Here's my question. I understand that we're looking for these districting maps are to represent disenfranchised voters. Am I pretty much on the right track? Okay. We've been reaching out to these cycle, but okay, we're gonna have to do this. When these maps are made, are the council members the one that say, okay, this is the map we're gonna adapt? Or will the community say, this is the map? When we were studying the demographics for 2010, we know this is a rotating community that the military is in and out, in and out. Is that considered? And lastly, is this designed to bring us together or to separate us? That's my question. I understand. I know. Believe me, I hang out with Josie every day, so I know. I hear her in my ear right now. All I'm saying is, if we want to re-enfranchise those who feel disenfranchised, please come and vote. You know what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? Is it to divide us or to really re-enfranchise? If we want to re-enfranchise, let's do it. I know we're going to do it anyway. But that's all I have to say. Do we consider the military? And we try to keep us together as yeah. Y'all have a
Great. Thank
good
you very
night.
much. Marty Emerald.
Good questions. I'd like to hear answers to it as well after the public hearing is closed. I retired from the San Diego City Council 2 years ago and retired here to Imperial Beach, and what a great decision that was. The filling a seat in a newly created district, the second Hispanic empowerment district in the city of San Diego, and they got a pasty old Hebrew here. But the point being, you had a community that was heavily Hispanic that was disenfranchised, that really wasn't part of the process. And so during that process of redistricting after the 2010 census, this area was carved out of many districts. And what we found was that there actually was a greater turnout of citizen participation, voter turnout, a greater diversity. We saw a greater diversity showing up. And this is what it's all about. We in Imperial Beach have arrived at this point where we're ready to take a step, our rite of passage as a diverse city. And diversity is the strength that we share here in this community, I believe. So the maps that have been drawn out, and particularly a couple that I think are really splendid, will, I think, empower people who live in various communities to become more engaged in the political process, in the community planning process. You will see, I believe, a greater voter turnout as well when neighbors are going door to door in their district and talking with their neighbors and sometimes extended family, and creating their own list of issues that they want addressed at City Hall. I think that the two maps in particular would help to not only create that kind of outpouring of support and engagement within the community, within the city, but also would put the newly elected council persons going forward, will put them on notice that they're not just taking care of their little corner, but they have a stake in the outcome of issues that are happening in all 4 districts. I believe that NDC's blended map would probably accomplish that greatly. It also follows major arterials so that you have some pretty distinct boundaries for these districts. And I believe the horizontal would also be passable. But the blended, I think, really would accomplish that. People would have schools in common, parks in common, streets that they travel each day that maybe they want repaired with that the Transnet budget, parks that they want serviced. They've got speeding problems. They come together as a community and they go to their council person who lives right there in the neighborhood to take care of these issues. I could go on, but my time is up. Thank you for engaging in the process. It is a must. Imperial Beach needs to step up, or we will face legal fees. And I think we do the community a disservice by not creating these distinct districts and offering people an opportunity to become more engaged in the process and more empowered in their own community. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much. John Munns.
My name is John Munns. I've been a resident of Imperial Beach for 32 years, and I've seen a lot of great changes happening here. When I first looked at this issue, it seemed to me that we're like a little postage stamp and we're tearing it in little pieces and going, okay, you and you and you. And I agree with what Marty says about divisiveness. And I think there's too much of that going on in our country right now. And I think I'm personally colorblind, and I know not everyone else is, but we all have different political views, of course. And we all want to see the right things happen for our community and for, for the good of all, whether you're what side of the, left or right you're on. To me, it seems like someone else is kind of putting this big gorilla on us, like threatening of a lawsuit. It seemed kind of strange when I first heard about it. I know they did the redistricting statewide a few years back, and I'm not really convinced that that was a good thing or a bad thing either way. It created some benefits for some, but I think it hurt some other people. I think what Marty said about voter turnout is important. And I think when you look at some of the statistics on the back, one of the things that jumps out at me is the voter turnout is very low. So you're talking about representing people who aren't even showing up to the polls. And I think I appreciate the idea that, okay, if your representative is coming from your neighborhood, then they're going to go knock on your door and they're going to represent you appropriately. Well, that may or may not happen. It just depends upon what their beliefs are and where they think they're going. So it seems like a big waste to me. That's my input.
Thank you so much, Mr. Munn. Mark Williams.
Like on the water. Thank you for your service. You're going to be missed. I'm not opposed to the districting. I think it's a good idea. It's one of the things I kind of thought about many years ago. Never really thought I'd bring it up. Never thought I'd ever see it. Not a bad idea. If we could pull McKay map number 2, if that'd be okay. I like that map, and I'll tell you why. My reason is because it really separates.
Wait, I'm sorry, McKay 2?
McKay 2.
Okay.
It's virtually what I was trying to draw and just didn't get finished because it's a lot of work going between the Excel sheet and balancing and coloring a crayon. It just flat out, yeah. Anyhow, I think this very much represents what we're trying to achieve. I think anybody who might feel disenfranchised on the east end of the town is going to get fairly represented that way. Certainly on the north end of the town will be fairly represented that way. The south end of the town along the strip will get that way. And one represented on the coast, I think, is more than fair, because if we get more than 2 people on the coast, what happens? Then somebody on the east side all of a sudden gets disenfranchised. They get outvoted every time. That's why I like about this map. And that's kind of, I think, a fair concept that it can absolutely bring. I don't know where y'all live. I know where Serge lives. I don't know where the rest of you live. But you know, that's okay. I also like the idea of, I don't care who lives in what house. They're a human being. I don't care if they're registered to vote or not registered to vote. I don't care if you have 10,000 people in that neighborhood, none of them are registered. They'll register if they're interested. You know, that's how the process works. I like following the geographical boundaries and nose counts. You know, how many people are living there? That's what it is. So just thought I'd put that input in. That's my rationale. So
can I ask you a question? Do you feel like the people in your neighborhood, since you're at the north end of it, feel represented?
Not really. And when I talk to my neighbors and they're going, who? Yeah, nothing happens, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, we see the city go out there and mow the lawn and do things. And Andy certainly go out there and dump the trash. Thank you. Andy will do everything, you know, but you know, great guy. But nevertheless, no, I when I talk to the people, because I'm regularly walking, you've seen me out there pushing my cat around and all the other wonderful things. And we talk, and it's like, no, because there seems to be not a lot of people over there who get engaged. And I think maybe I should get engaged. I think, no, I don't want to go through the stuff all the crap that everybody goes through. Hell, I don't want rocks thrown at me. I don't mind throwing them once in a while, but I don't want to.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope. Thank you.
And then thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Mr. Pilgrim. And then I was just going to indulge, the council going to indulge me, Mr. Brillhart and Mr. McKay. Did you guys want to come up and talk about your maps as well? Mr. Pilgrim's coming up. Did you want to walk us through your? Mrs. Brillhart. Oh, Mrs. Brill. I'm sorry. Mrs. Brillhart or Mitch, did you want to come up and?
I'm not going to defend my map.
The brilliant logic behind the map. So, Mr. Pilgrim.
I'll tell you, Pilgrim.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I go along with Mark. I thought at the time, I think it's kind of strange that a 4 square mile city needs to be district, but at the same time, I think we're in a situation where we want to make it happen and want to make it work best. Let me make just a comment in terms of the maps, and this is not a defense of my map. It's merely stating, if I may move over to this. All right. These are not voters. These are not residents. Right there is where they are. So anytime you include them, they really belong in this district out here. So I think a map, I want to call your attention to that idea. The idea of, I rather like the McKay map too, other than that corner really should be up in the green, just because of what I said. So that means I think we have to be careful that we don't district in such a way that the current high propensity voting group overwhelms the non-voting group within a district, if you will. And I think we all know where the high propensity voting areas is. We look at our council people and so on right now. But I like the idea. I thank you for the wonderful opportunity as a citizen to participate in this and to really see some of the problems. I have walked precincts for candidates, and I also am a volunteer sheriff's patrol, so I drive the whole city. It's interesting, if we pick our 6-hour patrol, we can drive darn near every street in this city, and sometimes do. So it's interesting to see these neighborhoods, and I encourage those of you who haven't done that to go out and visit. If you're really interested in the redistricting, go out in all of the neighborhoods and walk them a little bit. Literally get out of your car and walk them and see what they really are. And I think then the idea of the districting becomes real. Thank you for the opportunity to participate. I think it's a great thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Sandy, did you want an opportunity to talk about your map at all? And Mitch, I'm going to ask you one more time. Did you want to walk us through your logic at all? Okay, that's fine. Kim, was it you that did it? Kim, did you want to talk to us about your map? Did you guys want to talk about your maps at all? So with the public, so where I'm going to make sure everyone has an opportunity to give feedback and talk about this. We are moving through this process very quickly, so we do appreciate all the feedback, and I'm actually fascinated by this idea of map making, and I think it's important for people to talk about the process and the thinking that led you to come to this conclusion. So.
And I'm such a nerd. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun, and I really appreciated the opportunity to figure it out. So anyway, my thinking was I really wanted to honor the spirit of the law. And so I thought, we're about 50% Hispanic, and that maybe 50% of the districts, if they were Hispanic, that could really engage our Hispanic voters. And so that's why the two districts on the right are really focused on the east side of town, and they're both around 50% Hispanic voters. And then I thought because the beach area is so distinct, the issues that people have to deal with that live, right near the beach, in terms of traffic and all that, I would try to keep that area as close into one district as I could. And then the middle district, and it's kind of us middle of the road people, we're we're not on the beach. So it's sort of middle, a lot of middle income homes. There's also lots of apartments and things too. But some of the things I think that group has in common is we have communities that are bordering natural preserve areas. So we have folks that are living near the estuary and folks that are living by the bayside. So those were one of the commonalities I saw in that group. One other comment I wanted to make about, I have concerns about the NDC horizontal map, because I think, like Dick was saying, the cross, and maybe I can. No, that's not it. Oh, that I think going across that way, we're going to continue to have probably most of our representation coming from the west side of town, and it would dilute the disenfranchised voters that we're trying to engage. So,
great, thank you so much. Okay, I don't have any more public comment. Did I miss anybody? Anybody here would like to give feedback or comment? Great. Thank you all so much. It was fascinating and very civic discussion. I really appreciate it, and also the feedbacks. Just one comment. I never assumed that, and maybe the council, I read something different. I never assumed that we have districts that council members would ever live outside. Did anybody assume that? I think the assumption was from the very beginning that council members would live inside the district. So I'm going to just make sure, yeah, but thank you for bringing that up. That was a great point to bring up. Okay. All right. So, Mr. Patton.
Yeah, just a couple comments, then I'll sit back and listen, and then maybe a few comments later. First of all, I want to thank everybody that did these unbelievable hard work maps. There's no doubt that a lot of time was put into these, and narrowing down these. The more I hear from the people that made the maps, the more I'm convinced that really hard for me to try to narrow it down. I thought I had it narrowed down to 3, but now, it's tough. And so I just want to thank Mr. McKay, his great map, the Finks, Diane Rose, Realheart, Ms. Realheart, thank you. I'm sure your better half kind of helped you a little, maybe. Mr. Pilgrim, and we have Whitehead, and Whitehead didn't speak at all, right? No Whitehead. Thank you for the hard work that you put into this. I didn't know the process that you could go online and actually do this, because it's something I wasn't required to do. I was just required to study these maps. And so I want to put this out to Mrs. Hall, our school board member, that we have this fantastic high school, Mar Vista High School. And I think this would be a great project for some students at the high school now to dive into and maybe possibly they could come back with a sample. I don't know, just a thought. We could call Mr. Carry On and see what he has to say. But I think they would dive into these interactive maps like that and know how to do it instantly. So just a thought, and I'm just gonna hold my thought. That's all I have for right now. Thank you.
After watching your son give a great geographical presentation in a geography class, it seems like that's a perfect. I think you should go home and tell him to do this. Go over.
Gotta get it done though.
Yeah, like in a week. So anyway, no, I think it's a great idea. Thank you. Okay. Anyway, anything else, Mr. Spriggs?
Yeah, there are so many choices, and I think that that old rule, we shouldn't let perfect be the enemy of the good, is very apropos for all of us to keep in mind. We want two things at the same time. We want to ensure that we have representation that we haven't had from parts of the community that may have the plurality of the population from an ethnicity standpoint, but haven't translated that into political results. So that's one thing that needs to happen. The other thing is everybody who's elected in our little 4 square mile town, first and foremost, they've got to be thinking about the well-being of all of Imperial Beach. I mean, we're just not big enough, and we don't have enough diverse sources of income and revenue all over the city for us to be a classic district city. Our bread and butter is that of a beach town. We are a tourism, ecotourism income generating community. We're a visitor serving community. So we need to balance our core essence of those realities, which are going to be with us forever, and being able to have people who think about in that character, how do we capitalize on our environmental advantages, etc., going with representation, quite frankly, from parts of the community that have not been that engaged and may not be engaged in the same kinds of interest. So I think that we want to preserve some of this at-large elements, but we also want to make sure that we have representation. I believe that as we get that representation and people begin to see that more, let's say, Latinos are on the city council and involved in civic affairs, which most of these maps will ensure will happen over a period of time, that we are going to get broader representation throughout all of Imperial Beach anyway. People are going to start to feel that they can participate, that their voices can be heard, etc. That certainly is my hope and my dream and my expectation. So I don't think that we should carve up the city vertically so that we create lots of districts that don't have as a fundamental reason for being the whole thing that makes IB work. That is, the ocean, the waterfront, the coastal economy, those kinds of things. I think we need some representation, but I don't think we should be sacrificing our essence in order to maximize representation that's going to come over time anyway. So that's just trying to lay out a general principle and a theory for why I think that both the horizontal and the blended, I think you suggested those as well. Marty suggested them. I think that they both create an assurance that there's going to be representation, along with an assurance that we have thoughtful representatives that think about both the east and the west parts of Imperial Beach. I like the blended, I think, better because it does give our bayfront representation all across that area, which is very important. It does give our southeastern quadrant, call it Anianta section, representation. And it gives good representation as well to our existential coastal issues. So I kind of think that meets all of the needs that we are trying to address, at least that I've articulated in that theory of things. And there's certainly other maps that could do the same thing, but to me that one stands out for those reasons.
I think this is kind of incredible. I have to admit, I saw when I got all the maps and I was going online and looking at them, we have an amazing community, 28,000 people, and we get 13 maps. I kind of participated in the city of Encinitas when they did theirs, and they didn't have that many maps, and they got a lot more people. So this really shows that our community is engaged and wants to be a part of the solution and wants what's best for us, and I'm very excited about this. So I also think it's really important that you guys did is to me, because I want to remove the emotions and the feeling behind this. I want this to be about our communities and our neighborhoods, and let that reflect in the numbers that are in there. So I'm very happy that you guys took the time to do this. And I initially was really looking at the NDC blended as what I really wanted. I thought that was the most I kind of was the same thought process as Councilmember Spriggs, because I believe that one of the two major challenges that we have as we move forward really are going to be housing affordability and sea level rise. Those two things are going to be major challenges. And I don't think that one council member should be taking on the entire coastal plain because of that. I think that we all should have a stake in that responsibility. And I think that that's important to me, that we kind of split that up. And then Kim, you explain, Ms. Frank, you explain it, and I have to admit, I initially was like, when I saw it, but then after I see it and understand your thought process by trying to get that 50% number with having two communities of our Latino demographic, I think that's a great thing. I really do. I mean, we've set up here and looked at all the council members. If you were to bring up the map that shows where our council members live, our council members all live in the western part of our town. It is, well, except for Lori, except for Councilmember Bragg. I'm sorry. But if you were to look at the history, we are mostly along the western part of it. So our city is not as well represented. I get a lot of that about people saying, hey, we don't feel like we're engaged, and that's the north and the east. So I'm really wanting to try to make sure that all of our communities are represented. So I am submitting my the last thing too is on the blended. I don't like the separation where we flip across Palm Avenue. So Palm Avenue and Highway 75, I'm talking all the way at the eastern part of the city. That is a natural separation that I think is, if that little section there for section 1 could feel left out, because that kind of is a natural, almost like a thoroughfare that's really separates those two areas. So I kind of think that if we kept that, either make it a 2 section instead of a 1. And I'm not sure how that throws the numbers off a little bit. You know, it may throw it off significantly, but look at some of the manipulating it maybe down a little bit closer to where it's not that huge. That's a big road right there. And I think it provides it. So to summarize, I like Ms. Frank's map. Is if we're to go with the complete 50% represent the Frank, yeah, the Rivero Frank map, and then the blended map with the changes on the other side of Palm Avenue. So moving that section back over and looking at maybe the area that we can swap a little bit to where if this is too big of a number of people, that is important to me. And lastly, I do want to make sure that our businesses are represented as well, because one of the maps that we looked at had the section 4 where it did not have Main Street one block even, and that gives them the only businesses that they had was the outlying field and Job Corps. So it doesn't really have those small businesses that are kind of really important to our city. And I want our council members, we reflect the city, our residents, but it's also important for us to represent the businesses so we can grow those as well. So I want to make sure that that's looked at as well. So, yeah. So I got 2 maps, right? I came up with 2, the blended and the Rivero Frank map are my 2 favorites.
Thank you. I too wanted to thank Mr. McKay, the Franks and Ms. Brillhart, Mr. Pilgrim, Mr. Whitehead, and Diane Rose. It was very obvious that you did not use a pin the tail on the donkey type of approach. Diane Rose went to the extent of going, I believe, to the farmer's market, submitting 2 maps, chasing down our city clerk, making sure she knew she had submitted 2 maps, and followed that up with a text to me, letting me know that she had submitted 2 maps. So to me, it shows the level of is not an easy process at all. This will be a historical election for the city of Imperial Beach. This will be the first time in 2020 that we vote differently than we do now. So I hope the importance of that is not lost on any one of us. Along with that, 2022, we're going to do it all over again. So these are going to be very interesting times, and there are some things I think we could consider in the future, and that might be campaign finance, might be the rotation of our mayoral position, it might be even extending our city boundary and asking LAFCO, can we annex the part of what is now San Diego? Those people think they're in the city of Imperial Beach. So these are things to look at in the future. I did have some questions for our consultant. These are comments that were raised, and I know you can address them. So first off, your credentials. Why did we go to you?
So National Demographics has been doing this since 1979. So we're in our 39th year of doing this. And of the first 100 cities that switched, I think we did the work for 86 or 87 of them. And sorry, we're talking Ms. Emerald. We did the City of San Diego process. We actually did Sweetwater. We've done all the cities in San Diego except Oceanside. And of the 165 school districts, we've done over half of those. So we've got a lot of experience. And because both the experience and the knowledge, and there's rarely questions. The other piece of it is because we do so much of this, we have all these technology tools and the kits and the pieces that work to get the public engaged.
Okay, thank you for that, because I gained a great deal of assurance knowing that we have somebody here who has been doing this for a number of years. At the previous meetings, could you talk a little bit about the attendance? And I'm asking this question because when I had my briefing with city staff, the question was asked, well, did we get a lot of maps or did we not get a lot of maps? And the question was asked, well, do people not care? And I don't think that's the answer. I don't think that's true. I think that, and I want you to speak to this as well, is this condensed timeline. But my first question was, how many people were in attendance at the meetings? And if you can go from, you don't have to be exact, but.
I don't remember. I don't know if But part of my challenge is, like, I have 4 of these meetings this week, so all the meetings tend to blur together in terms of how many people are in each room. But
Mr. Hall?
we can
Yeah,
look at that.
Councilwoman Bragg, I would guess in the first meeting there was around 20 to 25, and the second meeting I would guess there was fewer, maybe 15 to 20.
Okay.
And let me put that in context too. For those first meetings before there's any maps, that's good turnout, especially for a small jurisdiction, to have that many people there, because this is kind of a out there idea. So before there are maps, we rarely get more than 20 or 30.
Okay, thank you for that. So how much money will be spent on, and Mr. Hall, you will probably answer this better than the consultant, but how much money will be spent on this procedure, and what funds will that come out of?
In order for us to stay in safe harbor with the state law, we do have to pay $30,000 to the legal firm that sent us the demand letter. And some costs for our staff attorney time. And so we came to the city council, and I believe we asked for $125,000. We hope it'll be less than $100,000, but it's not a cheap adventure. And those are coming from general fund reserves. That's right. They were not budgeted, of course.
Okay. Thank you. The issue of a council member living in the district that they will represent, I think, has been addressed. But, and I'm just going to bring in a historical point of view. We did have a number of years ago, we had a person move into our community, I think just under 3 months of actually running for office. So that was kind of funny. And it was Karush, you all remember. It was quite interesting. Even though somebody's living in and representing, let's say, a district, as a council member, know this, we represent every person in this community, no matter what color you are, no matter what age you are. So I don't ever want us to lose sight of that. If you would talk about, there was an issue brought up about the military, it's a transient population. How was that addressed?
So the total population figure that we use to figure out how many people go in each district is the 2010 census number. So that is set, the courts have said use that number for the safe harbor. The ethnic percentages that we get that are in the big spreadsheet for citizen voting age population, that gets updated by the Census Bureau each year. Now there's a lag, so the data we're using now was gathered between 2012 and 2016. So it's about a 2014 figure. And then the registration figures and turnout figures that the state provides get provided after every statewide election. So we are looking at registration and turnout numbers for the November 2016 election.
Okay.
So we do try to, we use the most recent data, but it's not live. Right? Okay.
There was an issue raised about Hispanic and Asian, Filipino surnames. How did you determine that?
So the gentleman's talking about, I mentioned those demographic spreadsheets. I showed the one for the city, but each map has one. Here. Here's the map, and then there's the demographic. I don't think I can zoom in on this, but oh yeah, there we go. So we do report registration and turnout numbers and turnout for 2014 and 2016. This data, the Spanish surnamed, Asian surname, and Filipino surname data comes from the state. And so they're getting the county voter rolls and they're running them against Census Bureau surname lists.
Okay.
There are some missed and some kind of, and then we take the other and the remainder of those and estimate out white and African American. There's also a Latino number. One thing we know is that statewide in California, the Spanish surname list it misses about 10% of the Latinos. So the Latino estimate is our adjusting that surname number up to offset that count.
Okay, thank you for that. There was a comment, it was actually a question. Somebody was wondering who would make this decision. Obviously, it will be the city council. But this has been there has been good community participation in this. I think we were all very surprised when this happened, but I think it's important that we give credit where credit is due. So I'm giving credit to the community. I think it's important that we do that with all of the comments that we have. I think it's important for us to not take credit for something we didn't do as well. So I did boil down, and thank you all for the many maps. And I was like Mr. Patton, I had my favorites, and then at my next glance, I had a couple other favorites. But I have 3 maps that I am favoring, only to become a hybrid. So that would be the NDC horizontal map, and then a map. And when I really looked at that map, I realized that the author really knows her community. She knows it well, and it's reflected. And I have to agree with, especially District 1 and District 2, and using Highway 75 Palm Ave, that in people's minds and my mind. I think people on the north side, Bayside, feel that way as well. I did especially like the comment about only having one representative deal with the issues on the coast. That's a heavy load. That's a heavy load for one person to handle. So I would be interested in seeing what a map would look like so that all 4 districts touch the coast. I think that it's a responsibility that the council could share together. So if you made that notation, again, it was the NDC horizontal, NDC blended, which kind of was reflective of Rose 2. But that would be my advocacy, is now to come up with a hybrid map for that. Thank you.
Let me just ask one clarifying question. So in terms of not going with horizontal, the idea is all 4 should touch the coast, but all 4 don't have, right? Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah, and by east side, I don't mean east side neighborhoods, I mean the far east side. Okay.
Great. Thank everybody again for the comments. I think there were a couple, Mr. Rebecca. Thanks. I think that your focus, Mr. Almall's focus on equity is the same thing, but I think certain neighborhoods just haven't been treated fairly or equitably at the built environment or the infrastructure investment in the city. It's very clear that the city ignored certain areas for its entire history. That includes the east side and the north side. We don't have paved alleys. We have entire neighborhoods without sidewalks. The lack of investment on the east side of Palm. And then secondly, the representative democracy in like these districts and goes back, cities on the East Coast like Baltimore have had these types of districts or wards or parishes. This goes back to actually even before the American Revolution in England. It's nothing new. So I like the idea of having representation. I think we have to be careful about it and how we do it. But I think the idea is to get more people engaged and feel like they have a stake in the process. And as Mr. Williams is over there on the very north end of IB, so it's been interesting and important to go out and talk to people and see how they feel and see if they feel involved. So again, fascinating process. So I guess if my perfect world, you would have. I like the Frink 1 and Rose 2 concepts. But I would have it more equitably. I like the idea of 2 coastal districts, so you have 2 districts to go, kind of east-west. And then, Mitch, I like your. I think I like your map as well. Like the McKay map 1, MM1. So MM1, I like the District 4. I think it's pretty good. I would blend all 3 of those, and you get kind of a. But I think it definitely teases out that north side, which is one of the largest population areas of IB, and then the east side. And then I think you got two districts that are along the coast, kind of divided up into the center city. But that's me. But again, fascinating process. And you know, the reality is, we're doing this way too fast. It's unfortunate that this legal process is holding us up because it's not, you know, it's a shame that we don't have more time to go out and work in the community. So anyway, so again, you know, in a perfect world, we'd blend McKay 1, Frank 1, and Rose 2, but have two coastal kind of contiguous coastal districts along. Anyway, yeah.
To that, because I like that idea. If we looked at Rose 2, is there anybody who do Rose 2? And if you look at sector 4 and 3, the purple and green, well, the purple, from just the eye, I'm sure it's a very dense area. That's why it's so small. But what if it did take over some of that green? Well, no, it doesn't need to go to the coast. Just took over some of the green where it's green and purple. That way the green and the purple look, just from the naked eye, it looks more equitable. And a lot of people will be looking at these maps and they won't know the numbers, but they will look at it and go, you know, that looks fair. You know, that's the district I live in. That looks fair. And just so the numbers worked out. That's the thought.
Yeah, the only challenge is each of these districts is population balance. So anything we put in, we have to bring
well,
out
like
of it.
I said,
But
I'm
we can
sure
do
that
it.
area is pretty dense, and that's why. But you know, there like Mr.
yeah.
Becker said, there's no perfect map.
Yeah.
You know,
And it could go south. You do get a ton of territory south without people.
Okay, so where are we at? I'm clearing the process right now. We've all come up. Mr. Patton, did you give your feedback on your map? Because you're the only person that really hadn't sort of talked about.
well, I'm just curious. What is our exact goal for tonight?
Right. Yeah, I think we need to be clear what we.
Yeah, what we're trying to accomplish tonight is what we really want to do is narrow this down to 1 or 2 maps so that we can prepare those maps and an ordinance that goes along with those maps for your consideration at your next meeting. Once we kind of have an idea of where the city council wants to go with that, we'll prepare a couple of other maps that the public wants to have considered, submitted by October 29th. And then we will come back to you and have a similar meeting and a hearing at your meeting on November 7th, where a final decision will be made. But, you know, I suppose we should talk to Doug and find out whether or not he feels like he's gotten enough input. And maybe you have some specific questions that might allow you to manipulate some of this and come up with some maps.
Yeah, I've got a couple of requests for looking at revisions. And one of the things I do want to emphasize too with the public comment or questions from council as well is given that the next hearing is a big one, or people shouldn't wait. If they have questions or comments they want to share, send them in tonight, tomorrow, so that the council has time to look at them and we have time to look at them on the technical side. We've got a lot of maps. We're really at what is it, 7 maps that are population balance and contiguous here. Yeah, if it's difficult with the looking at blending maps, which we're happy to do. Listen, thinking of isn't really preferred. I don't think there is.
Any map that goes from east-west for all districts, I would be very concerned about, only because you definitely have domination on the west side of town over the east side of town. I think the idea is you have neighborhoods. I just like to see at the end of the day we've come to some agreement that it's a neighborhood kind of based approach. So, and then we have some sort of equity on the coast. So the coast isn't maybe as, you know, we have some representation on the coast that reflects, I think, the idea that the coast is important.
I definitely think we just need to break that up. Coast is a big deal. It's going to be a hard thing for one person or even
Right.
two.
So I think that's what, you know, I think there's at least consensus with some of the things that I've heard.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to run every district across the coast.
No.
Right.
We're going to, you know, I don't want to repeat everything I said before, I won't, but, you know, most of these maps are population balanced to achieve the diversity that was at least minimally required.
Right.
And my thesis is that once we have that, it will grow beyond that no matter what the districts are, because people are going to see themselves represented on the city council. And that we have a large Latino population all over Imperial Beach, and we're going to see that population activated over time through representation on the council. So we don't have to go to an extreme model of having on the map. You know, we need to have at least that one area where we know we're likely to get the kind of representation that the California Voting Rights Act is saying that we need to get. And at the same time, we need to have people who are thinking about the city as a whole. And the only way to ensure that is to have the horizontal district, you know, as much as we can, except for that one. So to me, that's a good way to start. And we can take a look at it again in after the census, and redo it if it isn't working.
It's true. We do have, there'll be 2 years. So, so if you want 2 from me, I would say Rose, and I was favoring horizontal, but I think I'm like heading towards blended. At first, I really like the idea of having the entire beach covered by one person, but I think having that divided up might be better.
So do you like Rose 2 or Rose 1?
I'm sorry, Rose 2.
Okay.
Because Rose 1 didn't fit. It was, Rose 2 did fit, but Rose 2 and blended.
I can agree with that. I'm good with that.
Which was the blended again?
The blended is this.
Can you put the blended on the map?
Right.
Yeah. So just appreciate Councilmember speaking. So it looks like the Rose 1 and the horizontal and the quadrants map definitely didn't get the enthusiasm that the others did out of the 7 they're kind of live. So kind of what we tend to refer to is we're choosing focus maps to move forward. Nothing is final. You can always change your mind. But would suggest if that seems to be where there might be some ground, let's take those 3 out. Pieces of them will remain in some of the blended, in some of the requests for new maps that we'll come back with.
I will agree with Councilmember Patton, and I agree with Rose 2 and NBC blended.
Yeah, that. Great.
Yeah, no, that concept, it's pretty similar.
I mean, if the council's comfortable getting the Rose 2 blended now, that would be great. The reason we ask for narrowing this down is 2 parts. One is it helps make a final decision next meeting. The other piece is it helps the public focus. Yeah. You know, when they're trying to review, it's easier for them to review 2 maps and comment on those than for them to review 7. And we will be adding 1 or 2 more in based on that request.
So on November or by the 29th, somebody still could submit a map, correct? Mm-hmm. And so we may be somewhat going through this again a little more.
Right.
Yeah, the only distinction is on the supposed to select one. You can't make changes to the map. So the maps, as they are posted on October 31st, will be the ones you can consider. On the 7th, if you want to make your final decision on the 7th to introduce. If that decision can't be made on the 7th, you're going to have to schedule a special meeting because adoption is set for December 5th. So we have a short timeline there, but that's the idea.
Okay, and the people that have already submitted, they're totally welcome to go back and tweak as needed if they want.
Yes, and we'll add 2. We've added 1 more little tweak to this I was going to mention at the end of the meeting. If people want to look at this, if people scroll all the way down on the layer list, they've always had the population units on the sheet. I added on, some people are loving the numbers, the census blocks. So if people zoom in, now we don't have this printed out because it's way too hard to get on paper, but thanks to this tool, you can zoom in and see exactly how many people. You can't really see it on the screen, but on your computer screen, it's pretty clear the actual number of people in each city block. So if they want to fine tune their maps.
I can't, why don't you give us an example of one, because we can't read it.
Yeah, so So in each, the little number in the middle is the population number. So you got 61 people here and 58 people here and 58 people here. So they can get more fine-tuned, those that want to get in the numbers by using this tool. We just added that up today. For those that, if they do want to fine-tune. But it is worth emphasizing that, as Sadir was saying, there won't be any opportunity to mix maps or put pieces together. It's just choosing a map. Available choices, which is another reason why people should get their map in early.
Yep. All right. I was supposed to close the. Anyway, is there? So we've gotten feedback. So is there anything else?
You know, I think we could probably sum up a summary of a few things that we heard tonight. Obviously, SR is a barrier, so that's something we could keep in mind. We've heard that the coastal area should be divided into at least 2 districts to make sure that there's some emphasis there. And then that we heard a little bit about the northern district to make sure that there's some representation there, and then some of the eastern ones. So I think we have heard some of that. There's some other things that were talked about in the other meeting. OLF. And noise is an issue there, where it's not necessarily, noise isn't necessarily the issue on the north side. So all those kind of things come into play, but I think you guys identified a lot of those. SR75 is a barrier. That's important to remember. It's the coast and some of those things. So if there's any of those other little details that will help him shape the finality of the map, you know, for instance, if we're looking at this one, we heard SR75, and it looks like there's 5 or 6 blocks there that are south of SR. Manipulate the map. Those are the kind of things I think that will help him hone in on a final map that will be acceptable.
And I just following up on that, I did notice one thing. The question about taking those blocks out. Then District 1 needs population, but the beauty of getting all these maps from the public is Rose 1 actually did exactly that. You followed us, and so trading those blocks for these blocks, so that this is the District 1 that you end up with, and then it would ripple through.
Yeah,
so,
great.
So we can do that.
I think it's careful to be about the noise about OLF, because I think
Everybody.
because the other thing too is that the north part of our town is seeing some, because of the growth of the so we need to be aware of that as well.
All right. Well,
If I could, I just wanted to maybe hone down my two map selections, and that would be NDC blended and Rose 2.
all right. There's a lot of consensus.
Mhm.
3. There's
Yes.
4.
However, Mr. Hall, in my briefing with you, there was some talk about a resolution.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I had talked with some of my former colleagues at Cathedral City had to go through the same thing. I don't know, about a year ago. I don't know if you were in Cathedral City or not.
Yeah.
One of the things that Cathedral City did that I thought was right along the lines of what I've heard tonight is they actually passed a resolution of the city council that said, even though you're elected by districts, you represent the entire community. And so they just started saying, well, in my district, you could say, wait, we passed a resolution. It's not my district. You represent the entire community. That was important to them. Their community is a little bit more divided in any number of ways that we don't deal with. And that was very important in a city like Cathedral City.
I completely agree. Second that.
And
At the same time, we've seen what's happened on other city councils where the person from the minority district is basically ignored, and the conditions continue in that years and years and years. And I think if we're going to do this, let's do it right. And I mean, the council members in 4 years, that's true. But I just think we need to sort of incorporate into our council ethos the fact that we respect the district, but we also expect, you know, us to be a unified community and to think about the community as a whole. There's got to be a way to spread both without.
And I would add, there are 70 cities in the state holding their first by district elections in 3 weeks. So this is a hot topic, and especially in this county where you've gone from only San Diego 15 years ago, now there's only 4 cities left that will be at large. So this is definitely something that all your fellow council members in the region are thinking about as well.
Lastly, I think it's important. I agree with Councilmember Bragg. I think it's important to look at our entire, once we're done with this, I know we have to get this done, but let's look at our entire regulations around campaigning and stuff like that. I think we can look at that as we move forward. It's the time to look at that and make sure we're, up to the snuff of the rest of the cities around us. I agree with you, Councilor.
Great. Thanks, everybody. A very civil and productive debate and discussion. I want to thank the public again, exactly what American democracy is supposed to be about and how we're supposed to engage with each other. Not yelling, not screaming, but actually reasoned, civil debate where we talk about the merits of issues. So I really enjoyed that. Thank you. Dude, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.